Hey everyone, it's Nick from Nick's Crossing, and welcome to Nick's Reviews, where I review O-scale and O-gauge, rolling stock, motive power, and accessories. Alright, for today's review, we have a beautiful starter set, and this is the Santa Fe El Capitan set from Lionel, from all the way back in the late 2000s, and this is actually featured in the 2009 version 2 catalog. That was the last time that set was advertised, but they do have a more modern version of the set with the Lion Chief remote. This set does not use a Lion Chief remote, but I do remember when purchasing this set, they had other sets on the wall that were starting to feature the Bluetooth system or Lion Chief system. So this is right before that time period, but this engine does resemble some of the Lion Chief features. This engine is actually the first in my entire collection to feature any type of engine sound, such as a startup and a shutdown, some crew talk, horn, and bell all at the same time. So this was one of my favorite sets while growing up. So let's first look at the engine, and then we'll get to the three beautiful passenger cars. So I'm going to move the engine to track number 1 here, and we'll get started with that review. Alright, so a little bit about this diesel before we get into the visual features. This diesel is modeled after an EMD, Electromotive Division by GM, model FT. The FT's max power was 3,050 horsepower, and they were produced from 1939 up to 1945. And approximately 555 of them were constructed and built and sent all over the country for railroads. Alright, so let's get into the visual features of this beautiful locomotive. So I can't pass up without talking about the iconic Santa Fe paint scheme that is, I'll even go and say it's legendary. Lionel is known for making these sets, and they're oh so popular ever since, I want to say, the early 1950s, maybe even the late 1940s, during the mighty post-war era of Lionel. Even though this is a newer set, it still has that iconic look. I believe this paint scheme was recalled, but I never turned it in because I didn't know about it. I later found out through a train shop that the red, which is featured all over the front and through the striping, was recalled. It wasn't the right shade of red. I'm not sure if it was too dark or too light, but we'll never know. But anyways, let's go to top to bottom here. So we have 2 horns here, and then we have some awesome venting up top, tons of riveting all over the place, all stamped into the mold. This lifts up, and this kind of acts as a sound, more like a sound barrier or a sound cushion. It kind of adds a rumble to the sound because you're basically muffling your speakers, which are right underneath this shell. Moving on, we actually have a glass front here, or a nice plastic front, and there are little windshield wipers. I don't know if you guys can see that there. We have 2 crew figurines on each side. We have, I guess, a brakeman and an engineer, or a brakeman on this side, engineer on that side. We have a dual headlight that does work. It is not a Mars light, it just stays lit. We have a lighted number board here, another 158 painted on the side. All of this is stamped in the shell. These are not real venting, unfortunately. It is what it is. I believe some of Lionel's higher end models, this would all be real venting in here. They did add these supports, which gives it a nice illusion that it is a real vent. We have some ladders going up from the truck there, going up to the cab. Same with back here to the door in the shell. Up front, we have a die-cast pilot and also a rear die-cast truck. So all of this is die-cast, and even the fuel tank underneath is die-cast to add extra weight. So this engine is actually loaded with all kinds of mechanical features, such as having an operational front coupler, and this was not optional. It was included with the engine, so there is no dwarf coupler or ornamental scale coupler with this one. The rear coupler is not operating, but it does have a sensor in it that triggers the brake squeal sound effect. Alright, so I'm going to now show you guys the whole sequencing with the sound module in here for the rail sounds or diesel sounds. This engine is only conventionally controlled, and like I said, it is right before the Lion Chief remotes. So here we go with the conventional transformer here. Let's give her some power. Alright, so I don't know if you guys saw that. So as soon as you apply power, it's automatically set to go in forward. There is no startup neutral. And that is a critique of mine because I do have some PS1 stuff from the late 90s, and once you start it up after you hear the ding ding of the bell, it stays in neutral until you apply the reverse switch on your transformer. I do wish this engine had the same feature because once you apply power, it wants to go. And I've actually had people over here before just running the trains or in the past that crank the power all the way up. They say, why isn't it going? And then it's on full power. and it just wants to go, and usually has cars behind it, so that usually derails. So, all right, so I'm gonna bring the diesel around and forward so we don't have to deal with reversing it like twice. So let's bring around the platform here. So this is what it sounds like when it's in neutral. So I do like hearing the engine RPMs and also the hum of the generator in the background. So let's hit the horn on here. You'll hear some crew talk going. So those are all of the features of the sound programming on here. It goes through a whole cycle, like pretty much you're talking to a dispatcher between your brakeman, engineer, and the dispatcher says, okay, you're clear, you're good to go. I do like the bell on this locomotive. It does sound very classic EMD. It's got a nice high pitch to it, so it cuts through when everything's running up here. All right, so these are the 3 passenger cars. We're gonna go one at a time. I flipped the first 2 around so you guys can see all the features that are underneath the cars, but they are really the same, they just have different numbers. The first one's numbered 3105, the next one's numbered 3103. So automatically you can see at the end, we have a door. I believe these are operating doors, so check this out. They are sprung operated doors. We have a nice like billow here between the cars. These join up very close. We have an operating coupler here, but the interesting thing is that these can't drop that far without them shorting out. So that is open right now. I'll leave that open for our diesel. We have some venting up top here, and I believe those are the vents for the bathroom, which are right in here. These 2 are bathrooms, which is really cool. On the trucks, we have all die-cast trucks with brake cylinder detailing in there. Here are the kind of over-exaggerated brake shoes, but we get the idea. I think that's really cool. Move it down, we have an air tank right here, or it could be for potable water. Not exactly sure on that one, but it's most likely an air tank. And if we move a little bit further down, you guys can see on 3103, this is the other side of it. We have these 2 utility boxes, or either battery boxes or utility boxes there. And also these doors open as well. I forgot to mention that. So all the doors in this locomotive open up. Like again, we have other, just like 3105, 3103 has venting up top. And we do have coach seating inside here. So we could place figurines in here, but they are a little small. Like the seats are tiny. I kind of wish they didn't put the dividers in them, but it is what it is. So let's move further down. And now we're at the last car, which is 3198. Still pretty much the same. We have opening doors. But at the end, it domes down to an observation car. So we'll spin the camera around and show you guys the end of that. All right, so here's the backside of 3198. And this is a streamlined observation car. And you can see it has these cool little gems up top and on the side. Same as before, we still have the utility boxes, and there's an air tank on the other side. I promise it's there. They give you an operating rear coupler, which is pretty cool, just in case you want to run the engine in reverse or maybe add other cars to the end of it. I'm not exactly sure. But you do also, I forgot to mention this, we have this awesome pinstripe that runs throughout all 3 cars all the way up to the diesel. They line up perfectly. So I think that's a great touch to this entire set. And the final detail I'll mention, other than our door cannot open on the rear, but this plate says El Capitan, and in the smallest writing ever underneath there, it says Coach Streamliner. To see that, I actually had to pull off the car and use a magnifier to see what exactly it said, so I think that's amazing. So let's get these cars running with our beautiful FT diesel. We'll get these cars running through all sorts of times a day and everything up here on the platform. All right, all aboard. All right, everyone, this is going to conclude the review of my Lionel El Capitan starter set. This is all considered 027, and it did include a nice loop of track and a ZW80 transformer. Unfortunately, the transformer I can't really stand behind because I've gone through quite a few. They just don't seem to last. This set is definitely a keeper. I've had zero issues with it. It's definitely a great set. If you see one, or if you see a number 158 engine, I highly recommend picking it up. There are also add-on cars to the set. I do want to get a couple of other cars, maybe like a dining car or a baggage car, but they are quite pricey. I believe the baggage car is around $80 or so. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and make sure to hit that bell so you don't miss content just like this. Also, I love to hear your guys' comments, and don't forget to give the video a like. It's the easiest thing to do, and it really helps out the channel. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining me in this Nick's Reviews episode, and I hope to see you all in future Railfan videos, adventures, and reviews.